Hi everyone, this is my course project in Survey of English and American Literature. Today I am going to discuss the Victorian literature. The Victorian age was the period of Queen Victoria's reign, and it was the longest reign in the British history. A period of growth in the economy thanks to the development of industry and transports, and period of political expansion. The British Empire took enormous proportions. Victorian age was also the age of social reforms. For example, there were Factory Acts. This act improved the condition of workers in factories, and the Elementary Education Act. Elementary school became free and compulsory. This period is also named Puritan Age. Because sex became a taboo, families were strictly patriarchal, and so women were under the authority of their fathers or their husbands. Even if during the Victorian age, women began to fight for freedom and emancipation with the suffragettes movement. If on the one hand, Victorian age was a period of developing, on the other hand, it was a period of social problems. It is the Victorian compromise. The Victorians made a compromise between two aspects and hide them behind optimism and hypocrisy. Now I'm going to discuss the characteristic of Victorian age. The discoveries of science have particular effects upon the literature of Victorian age. It is simple to mark the following four general characteristics. Number 1. Realism. Literature of this age comes closer to daily life, which reflects its practical problems and interests. It becomes a powerful instrument for human progress. Second, moral purpose. The Victorian literature seems to assert its moral purpose. Tennyson, Browning, Carlyle, Ruskin, all were the teachers of England with a faith in their moral message to instruct the world. Third, doubts or contradictory faiths and philosophies. It is often considered as an age of doubt and contradictory faiths and philosophies. The influence of science is felt here. Browning, the optimist, and Hardy, the pessimist, is regarded as most popular writers of the age. There is realistic literature with pre-Raphaelite poetry that believes in art for art's sake. The last one is idealism. Though the age is characterized as practical and materialistic, most of the writers suggest a purely ideal life. It is an idealistic age where the great ideas like truth, justice, love, brotherhood are emphasized by poets, essayists, and novelists of the age. Growth of Victorian age. After the Romantic Revival, the literature of the Victorian age entered into a new period. The literature of this period expressed a fusion of romanticism to realism. The Victorian age is rich in literature. It produced two great poets like Tennyson and Browning, dramatists like Shaw and Galsworthy, novelists like Charles Dickens and Hardy, and essayists like Carlyle and Stevenson. The age is remarkable for the excellence of its literature. There are main features of Victorian poetry are the following. Conflict between religion and science, showing the responsibility, use of sensory elements, pessimism, interest in medieval fables and legends, realism, sentimentality, development of dramatic monologue. Now I'm going to discuss the common themes in Victorian literature. If one study possibly all the great writers of this period, you will mark three general characteristics. Firstly, literature in the Victorian age tended to come face to face with realism. This reflected more on practical problem and interests. It becomes a powerful instrument for human progress. Secondly, the Victorian literature seems to deviate from the strict people for art's sakes, and asserts its moral purpose. Alfred Lord Tennyson and Robert Browning all were the teachers of England with the faith their moral message to construct the world. Thirdly, this was more like the age of pessimism and Confucianism. The influence of science was strongly felt here. Now I am going to select one author from the Victorian literature and its notable work. So I'm going to discuss about the life of Alfred Lord Tennyson. He was born in the depths of Lincolnshire, the fourth son of the 12 children of the rector of Somers Bay, George Clayton Tennyson, a cultivated but embittered clergyman who took out his disappointment on his wife Elizabeth and his brood of children. On at least one occasion threatening to kill Alfred's eldest brother Frederick, the rector had been forced into the church by his own father, also named George, a rich and ambitious country solicitor intent on founding the great family dynasty that would rise above their modest origins into a place among the English aristocracy. Old Mr. Tennyson, aware that his eldest son, the rector, was unpromising material for family struggle upward, made his second son, his favorite child, his chief heir. Tennyson's father, who had a strong snake of mental instability, reacted to his virtual disinheritance by taking to drink and drugs, making the home atmosphere so sour that the family spoke of the black blood of the Tennysons. Part of the family heritage was a strain of epilepsy, a disease then thought to be brought on by sexual excess and therefore shameful. One of the Tennyson's brothers was confined to an insane asylum most of his life. Another had recurrent bouts of addiction to drugs. A third had to be put into a mental home because of his alcoholism. Another was intermittently confined and died relatively young. Of the rest of the 11 children who reached maturity, all had at least one severe mental breakdown. During the first half of his life, Alfred thought that he had inherited epilepsy from his father and that it was responsible for the trances into which he occasionally fell until he was well over 40 years old. One of his notable works is The Kraken. Alfred Lord Tennyson published The Kraken in 1830s in poems, chiefly lyrical. With an extra line, the poem is about the mythical sea monster known as the Kraken, a legendary beast that has haunted old sailor stories, folklore, and literature since the 13th century. An enormous squid-like creature, the Kraken is supposedly capable of dragging entire ships down to its dwelling place in the deepest reaches of the ocean. In the poem, though, the Kraken simply sleeps at an ancient slumber in the depths, where the speaker implies it will remain until a religious reckoning drives it to the surface to die. So I put the lyrics of the poem in my report, so you can read The Kraken below. Thank you for listening.